Welcome to Planted, Finding Your Roots in STEM Careers. Journey with us as we navigate the winding path into plant-related careers with professionals who have taken root or are still branching out. I'm Megan Wiesbrook.
And I'm Jessica Turner-Scoff.
In this season of Planted, we are exploring the fields of opportunities associated with plant-focused STEM careers. We are super excited about today's guest because it serves as a great example of merging interests, different skills, and working with plants while sharing knowledge throughout the world.
Absolutely, Megan. When you think of a STEM career, do you think of the field of publishing? Because you should. Our guest today is the one and only Dr. Bennett Young. Bennett works at this fantastic scientific journal, Plants People Planet, as a managing editor. This journal is open access, so anybody can read any of the amazing articles about plant science and the benefits to the world. So thank you so much for being here today, Bennett.
Thank you. Thanks for the lovely introduction, and I'm delighted to be here and have a nice conversation about academic publishing.
So Bennett, for our listeners, we always like to start out and kind of link together three seemingly random things. I'll be honest, the common thread is you, but it also gives us an opportunity to get to know you a little bit before we jump right in to ask you some questions about your career and, in this case, the field of publishing. So, Bennett, can you link together or give some background about how bow ties, cell death, and business development connect to you?
Definitely three things you'll never hear again in a sentence after this podcast. So bow ties, yes. I don't know why. I love bow ties. I've got one on especially for tonight's podcast. I've been building up a little collection of them over a number of years. So every time I see one in a charity shop or somewhere, I grab it. Particularly love botanical themed bow ties, as you might imagine. And then cell death, it sounds a bit scary when you sort of see it written down like that. That's the process I studied as part of my PhD. So I did a PhD in plant molecular biology, and I worked on programmed cell death in plants. And I just found it an absolutely fascinating process, really. The fact that multicellular organisms have evolved this process by which they can essentially kill parts themselves as part of their normal development or in response to stresses or disease. And I think it was quite interesting in plants from the point of view of quite little was known about it at the time when I was doing my PhD. So it seemed like a real area where could be lots of discoveries made. And it was also quite interesting comparing it to programmed cell death in animals, where it's quite well studied with links to sort of cancer and disease. But it seemed to be quite a distinct process in plants. So that was quite interesting from that point of view as well. And then business development. So that touches on my sort of career after my PhD, where I did a bit of a 180 from the world of research in the lab. And I moved into business development for a medical company. So we'll get onto that in more detail in a bit, I think.
Bennett, I mean, I've known you for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and I've just been lucky enough to publish some papers through Plants People Planet and have you as my editor. So it's so exciting to have you here. When we were brainstorming for season 3 and we decided we wanted to focus on the different fields of opportunities, you were a top choice, an absolutely natural choice, and we are so excited to have you here. So let's get started.
So Bennett, occasionally we like to use an analogy when we talk about STEM careers as kind of a braided river. There's maybe this main vein of STEM that is the main part of the river, but people kind of can enter STEM into all different small little streams or flows, essentially. And it's rarely straightforward. It's rarely linear. There's usually, different entry points into that main vein of STEM. And I know you took advantage of a lot of different kinds of opportunities. You have a variety of experiences. Can you talk about getting your PhD in plant molecular biology, then your journey into business development, and now in publishing? Kind of talk us through your braided river into STEM.
Yeah, I absolutely love that analogy. I think it sums up my career today perfectly well, to be honest. And yeah, so I'll take you back to my PhD. So I did that from 2006 to 2010. And how I ended up doing a PhD in plant molecular biology was during my undergraduate degree. Between my second and third year, my undergraduate tutor helped set me up with a summer internship to get some lab experience. Because up to that point, I hadn't had much lab experience, and I quite liked the idea of doing a PhD And this was a nice sort of opportunity for me to get some experience of working in the lab. And that lab was a plant biology lab studying programmed cell death. And then that led on to me doing my final year dissertation project as part of my degree in that same lab. And then a PhD opportunity came up at the end of my degree to move on into that lab. And I went for it and got that position. And that's how I ended up doing my degree in that group. And then I finished my PhD in 2010. As I was coming towards the end of my PhD, I really enjoy my PhD. It was an amazing experience. And I enjoyed the research. But up to that point, I didn't really know. That's all I'd experienced. And I kind of wanted to get experience of something completely different. And I didn't fully know what I wanted to do for my whole entire career for the future. So I was looking for opportunities outside the lab where I could apply my skills, my scientific knowledge, but in a different setting. And when I was doing my PhD, I really enjoyed sort of science communication activities I was doing alongside my PhD. So when schools visited the university, I'd help with demonstrations. I'd go to the local museum and do carnivorous plant displays and things like this, and absolutely loved kind of communicating science in that context. So I was looking for science communication roles, but they're quite few and far between outside of big cities like London. So there wasn't that many opportunities available to me at the time. So I had to kind of cast my net much more widely. And so I was looking for scientific jobs where I could apply my scientific knowledge and use some of my skills I thought I had, like communication skills and sort of networking skills, and applied for a job for a medical devices company as a business development specialist. So I submitted my application and then I followed it up with a phone call. And it just so happened that the manager who was going to be interviewing for the job answered that phone and had a really nice conversation with him and was invited to interview and got the job. So that was just a real stroke of luck that I managed to make that connection and we had a good conversation. But it just goes to show that sometimes if you just take a bit of a risk and roll a dice, it can work out for you. So I was in that job for about 14 months in total. I learned a lot, like professionally, personally. It really developed my skills. I learned a whole new skill set I hadn't really been exposed to as part of my degree and PhD. But I was kind of missing the academic world and the academic life. So I was looking for an opportunity to come back into the academic sphere and sort of build on the skills that I had been acquiring. And I was signed up to all sorts of job sites for science communication roles. And one was an RSS feed for science communication jobs. And it just happened to advertise a job for a science journal, a plant science journal, which was within commutable distance to where I lived. So that was a lucky stroke of luck as well. And when I was reading the job description, it was like a sort of aha moment. I was just sort of reading through what they wanted. They wanted someone who can communicate with people, had a PhD in plant science, could do that. They wanted someone who could go out to conferences to represent the journal. Well, I've been doing that as part of a business development specialist role, and also when I was doing my PhD too. And someone who can network and interact with people and build good relationships and who's sort of friendly and approachable. So I like to think I am as well. So it just seemed to be ticking all these boxes. And I'd never considered a role in scientific publishing up until that point. But it really sort of opened my eyes that this could be a career for me. So I applied for the job and was looking to get it. And that was with a journal called the Journal of Experimental Botany. And I was with them for about 6 years, managing peer review at the journal. And I really learned my sort of publishing ropes in that position. And then in 2017, late 17, I saw a job for managing editor of Plants, People, Planet with the New Phytologist Foundation. And it was just too good of an opportunity to let slide by, the opportunity to be managing editor for a new journal covering a really exciting topic. So I went for it and was fortunate to get it. And I've been there for about 4 years now. It's absolutely flown by. I can't believe it's been that long. But I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, that's me.
I love your description of your job. I mean, it really, as listeners know, we love to plug other seasons of Planted, but season 1 is all about the winding path into STEM careers. And it's such a braided river approach. And, you just had so many good little tidbits of advice, like taking internships, following listservs and mailing lists of STEM topics that interest you, because there's job postings, there's internship opportunities. It's an incredible wealth of information and a great way to connect into those professional communities. So thank you so much for your insights as you were talking about that. Now, I'd also love to hear a little bit more about what you wanted to be when you were a kid. I know people in Planted, it's been everything from, pop stars to, I believe, teachers, everything in between. So what about Bennett? What did you want to be?
I think this is a real toughie. I had to really rack my brain to think about this. I had to cast myself back to little Bennett and try and think about what he wanted to be. I've always loved nature and the natural world and animals and plants and gardening with my dad. I got lots of fond memories of doing that and growing fruit and vegetables. And I've always been fascinated by biology and science, particularly biology, you might imagine, was my favourite subject in school and the subject I did best at. And I'd sort of see these people on TV popping up, experts talking about, antelopes and trees and comets, whatever it might be, a new drug or something. And I always thought that seemed like an amazing job to have, but I had no sort of idea how to get from little old me in school to being some sort of expert on a topic in a particular kind of division of science. But I kind of knew that some education was the way to get there. Mm-hmm. I just sort of worked hard on what I was good at in school and got sort of decent grades in the sciences. And then when I was in high school, my sister, who sort of inspired me a bit, she was the first in our family to go off to university, and she studied microbiology, so she was into science as well. So to see her sort of go off to university and thrive, and it opened a whole load of opportunities up for her, and she experienced this whole new world. It sort of made me sort of realise that was sort of what I wanted to do. So I went off to set my sights going off to university and studying biology at a sort of high level, knowing that I don't really know what I want to do after it, but I was confident that it'd open up some opportunities for me.
So Bennett, I love hearing your background and your early interest in science. You are certainly in the company of two other big nature nerds.
It's true.
I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was little, mainly because I just liked science, and that was kind of what I thought I could do. But it's always great to listen to other people who kind of just follow their interests and see where that leads them. Because it didn't lead to marine biology for me, but that's okay because I still get to have awesome conversations all the time with other nature nerds who love science just as much as I do. But I'm so excited to talk about Plants, People, and Planet, and would love for you to share more information with our listeners about the journal itself. I know it's got to be really cool to be on the ground floor of working on a new journal. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Plants, People, Planet is an open access journal, and we're a cross-disciplinary journal. What we're interested in is publishing plant-focused research with impact on people, society, and the planet. We're owned by a non-for-profit organisation called the New Phytologist Foundation, and their ethos is to promote and support plant science. They publish another plant journal called the New Phytologist, which is a really well-known and quite old plant science journal. And I absolutely love working for Plants, People, Planet. It's a really fun, exciting journal to work for. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that a journal focused on the sort of societal implications of plant research is a really important topic for a journal to focus on. I think it's quite a unique niche for a journal to have, and particularly in this sort of the point in history we are with climate change, human impacts on the environment, and also people generally overlook plants. And don't have much interest in them. I'm talking sort of outside of the scientific community. A journal where we can really showcase plants and highlight the exciting projects with impact on people and society is something really worthy of doing and really important. And I'm incredibly passionate about it.
I know that, one thing that we always try to stress here is that plants are the solution to so many of the greatest challenges of our time, from climate change to biodiversity loss to food security, et cetera. I mean, plants are there for us. And that's one of the things that I love about Plants, People, Planet it's a bold journal. And I love that. Like, you guys have some really amazing, powerful articles that you guys publish that really showcase how important plants are for people, for the planet. And it's just really cool to be able to see that. And I also, something I love too is that you have societal impact statements right up at the front. And just having that is such a strong signal to the scientific community, to people that are reading it. it being open access. It's like, here is how this work is going to make a difference. And I just think that's really great. So I could just sing the songs of Plant People Planet all day, but that would not be what this podcast is about. So I'll rein it in. Instead, it's about careers. So, Bennett, can you talk a little bit about what it's like to work in publishing? What does your job look like?
Yeah, so my role is managing editor, and this can mean probably lots of different things for different journals and different publishers. Mine's quite, in terms of my role, it's quite varied. So we're quite a small team, and we've got this new journal we're growing and developing and seeing it flourish. And really my role encompasses sort of the whole process from end to end in a way. So at the very start of the process, I suppose you could think of it as like commissioning content. So that's really getting people engaged, getting authors interested in the journal, discussing ideas with them, and what kind of format that might work in the journal, working with guest editors around collection of papers and really thinking about exciting hot topics we can publish a special issue on and pull together all this exciting work in a particular area to give it a really good update and talk about why it's important. That's really fun, sort of exciting part of the job. And then once the paper's written and submitted to the journal, it undergoes a process called peer review. So I manage, sort of oversee that process. And this is a really important process at academic journals whereby other scientists sort of assess papers that have been submitted for publication and to check to make sure it's scientifically sound and it's been rigorously conducted. And we have academic editors who make a decision based on the recommendations of reviewers. And we should acknowledge that the work of editors and peer reviewers is done alongside their own commitments. And they make a really valuable and important contribution to journals. So I just want to acknowledge that all the hard work they put in and the sort of really valuable contribution to Plants People Planet and obviously lots of other journals all around the world. And then once a paper is accepted for publication, that's the real like, yay, kind of point for an author. And then we work on a process called production, whereby we get the paper all shipshape and ready to be published and make sure our checks and balances are in place and all the files are in order to be sent off to the publisher to proof the article. And then once that's been checked and the proof looks fine, the article's then published. And then you think our job might end there, but no, it doesn't. We then work on promotion. And this is an area that we work on really hard at the New Phytologist Foundation, really proud of the work we do in this area. And this involves lots of different sort of different tasks, from disseminating work on social media, doing sort of videos and blogs and interviews with authors, and just sort of anything we could do really to really help promote the work. We sort of work on press releases as well. And we also liaise with our publisher Wiley on specific kind of promotion campaigns around individual papers and collections and topics. So a lot goes on there. Also going out to conferences as well, sort of representing the journal and sort of really engaging with the community and sort of finding out, what's the most exciting topics at this moment in time, what are the really interesting areas, where's all the exciting work being conducted, and sort of reaching out to people and getting them interested and hopefully getting them to submit some exciting papers to Plants People Planet.
Well, listening to you talk about the entire publication process, I would imagine that there are, different skills that you've acquired from your varied experiences, but also just, that aid in those many different facets of the process, because there's parts where you have to move others along or, probably have really tight deadlines, lots of organization to keep in mind. But what are some skills that you think someone would need in order to be a successful editor in the publishing world?
Yeah, absolutely. All those things you just mentioned. I think, good communication and sort of an ability to build relationships with people. A lot of it is really about work. It's a team effort really at the journal. We have editors who handle papers for us and do a fantastic job. And obviously authors who, contribute papers to us and peer reviewers who really help us by providing their expert opinions, and just sort of having that ability to work with lots of different people and build a rapport and be sort of friendly and approachable and passionate about what you do, I think are really important skills. And I think just, as I just mentioned then, the sort of friendliness and approachableness are really important because lots of things, we're in an increasingly sort of electronic, kind of automated world, which is good. But then also, I think sometimes people just want to interact with a friendly human being who can give them sort of clear answers to their questions and get things done. And that's us, the journal, when you need our help.
There's definitely a person listening to this interview, Bennett, and they're going, a career in academic publishing sounds perfect for me. What piece of advice would you give to that person?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great area to have a career in. I mean, there's vast opportunities. So there are big global publishers based all around the world. Wiley are our publisher, but there's lots of others, Oxford University Press, Taylor & Francis. And there are also lots of small and medium-sized publishers and societies, from university presses to academic societies, a bit more like how we function at the New Phytologist Foundation. And all these different places will have people working for them, obviously, in lots of different roles, from editors, commissioning editors, production managers, promotion and marketing team, events people. Big publishers, you'll have HR departments and sales and marketing departments and all the other kinds of bits and pieces which go into kind of more operational sides of big businesses. So there's tons of opportunity out there for people. What I would suggest someone does who's interested in the world of academic publishing would be to sit down and think about what really interests you about a career in publishing and what interests you about publishing, and then sit down and think about what skills you have and what you're interested in doing as a job, and just try and sort of pair up those two things with what with the roles in academic publishing that are sort of available. So if you're more of a detailed orientated person who likes writing, then maybe more of like an editor or an editorial type role might be suitable to you, a science writing role or copy editing, for instance. If you're more of a kind of creative person with a flair for communication, then maybe more like promotion or marketing type role might be suitable for you. If you've got an artistic flair, then there's scientific illustration as well. So there's all sorts of things you can think about. And another piece of advice I'd say would be to speak to people. So if you're a scientist, go to conferences, speak to publishers and speak to editors at conferences, and just sort of get some advice from them. Flag that you're interested in publishing, and just sort of see if there's any opportunities. You never know, there might be an internship coming up or something you can do to try and get some experience. I'd also recommend that people follow organisations they're interested in on social media. Societies and publishers have social media channels, and they'll advertise opportunities down these routes. So if you just cast that net as widely as possible, opportunities will kind of appear to you, and which might be suitable. So that'd be my advice as well. And also for more specific roles like editing, there are things you can do now really to sort of help hone your writing and editing skills. So you can set up your own blog and talk about your own research, or blog about the research of your colleagues. If you're interested in the kind of more illustration side as another specific role, you could work on those skills, doing illustrations for your own work and build a bit of a portfolio, do some illustration jobs for colleagues, and that might lead on to other opportunities.
I think that's great advice, and it really hits upon a lot of veins that we've talked about in previous seasons of like merging other passions that you have. If you want to be in publishing, or that's an area of interest, but you're also have an interest in drawing or an interest in just connecting with other people, or have a creative side. There's lots of different kind of nuanced opportunities in publishing, and I think that's really cool to highlight, and definitely something that a lot of our other guests have highlighted as well. I know we always talk about the fact that there are some major perks to different jobs, whether it be travel or, I would argue that like for Jessica and I, these conversations that we get to have are a major perk of our job.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about what are some of the best perks of your role as a managing editor and in publishing?
Absolutely. I'm really privileged that there's some really great perks associated with my job, and it's kind of hard to sort of pick out a few, but I'd say being able to interact and work with some really inspirational scientists from all around the world is a fantastic part of my job, and continually meet some really inspiring people, learn lots of exciting and interesting things from them is great. The travel as well is a nice bonus. So conferences are a really important part of the academic world. It's where scientists kind of meet up and network and share and present the latest findings, and journals and lots of other organisations attend these meetings as well to be able to interact with the community. So being able to go to meetings in some places I'd never normally go to has been a really, really nice perk. Although the world of conferences is sort of in flux, I'd say, because things have changed quite a bit due to the COVID pandemic kind of putting a stop to most international meetings and travel. And all things are sort of starting up in different kinds of ways. And also people are much more conscious about travel with climate change, which is, I think certainly as a consideration we need to start thinking more about. So as things stand, conferences are here to stay, and they are, a really important part of the job. I think another nice perk is just working for a really close-knit team for a non-profit organisation where we're all working to support and promote the plant science community. And so all pulling in that direction, I think, is a lovely thing to be part of. And, we like to think of ourselves as a sort of close-knit family. And, it's just an absolute pleasure being part of that.
Well, it's always exciting to hear about the fun and the perks of each position. We also shared your profile, a bit about you and a bit about Plants, People, Planet with some of our educators. They're a section of our audience as well who had some questions for you based on they took a look at your profile and they said, if we got an opportunity to ask Bennett these questions, this is what we would ask. So Jess, I'll let you take it away with our first one.
Which project at Plants, People, Planet are you the most proud of? And you don't have to say the paper you worked on, like helping me get published. You don't have to say that. But no, seriously, what's been your favorite thing, the thing you're most proud of?
Well, I'll say off the bat that your paper was amazing. It is my probably my favourite paper we've published so far. If I'm allowed to have a favourite, I mean, there's so many good ones.
Thank you.
It's our most downloaded paper. Definitely recommend listeners to check it out. Jessica's paper on the benefits of trees to society. It's a great paper. And it's a real pleasure to work with Jessica on it. And then I have to say, publishing issue 1 of the journal. So when I first joined the journal, we hadn't published a single paper yet. So part of my job was really about getting the journal going and getting all our processes in place and getting all the behind the scenes stuff with peer review up and running and working effectively. And sort of still building up the sort of editorial team to work on the journal. So getting authors engaged at that point and getting them to submit papers to us to be able to publish issue 1 was great, and seeing it out was just really gratifying, and I think was just a huge moment for me in my career. So I'll always look back at that fondly, and it's brilliant to see issue 1 go live. I remember sitting eating my breakfast and we were on the phone kind of scrolling to make sure it had gone live and everything looked okay, and I was looking at people commenting about it on social media and sort of enjoying the papers. It was a really sort of lovely moment. And then I think we've just published some great special issues as well. So I mentioned the plant blindness one, sort of jumped the gun, mentioned it earlier, but that was a standout one, I think. And we published several fantastic special issues, and a more recent one on sort of mycorrhiza and the importance of them for society, particularly in the face of climate change. That was very exciting, especially to be part of. And, I learned a lot. I didn't really do any sort of microbiology as part of my PhD, so learn much more about mycorrhiza and the importance of them, not just for food security, but for lots of other things, was really interesting. And it sort of ties back to the comments you made earlier about, being exposed to all this different, exciting kind of research. It's a real nice perk of the job.
Well, we are definitely going to be linking all of these articles that you've mentioned and projects and issues in our bonus content. I can understand, like, when you have that, if you have the first issue to launch, I mean, it's like kind of like watching something, like the birth of something. Almost.
It's incredible.
It's so cool. I know we felt the same way when we launched the first season of Planted, although I don't think it, I know how, I can only imagine how much work goes into an entire issue of peer-reviewed articles. So I don't want to make that comparison, but I understand, like, it's just such a proud moment. And you've had so many great issues since then that we will definitely include in our bonus content. We also had a question, and I know we've talked a little bit about this because you've worked in different industries, different areas. Can you talk about some of the pros and cons about the different fields you've been in and kind of your likes and dislikes about different, either being in business development versus more, academia, and now publishing, walk us through some of the differences of those fields and kind of what you like about each of them.
Yeah, I mean, business development was so different to what I knew in some of from doing a PhD. But I learned a heck of a lot, sort of going out and interacting with customers and managing my own accounts, managing a territory. It was intense, sort of learning curve, but I took so much out of it. And it really set me up, I think, for, moving into publishing. I don't think, perhaps my career might not have, trajectory might be completely different if I hadn't had that role. Even though it didn't work out for me, and I was only there for 14 months, it was a pivotal moment for me. The perks of that job were good. I liked the kind of structure of kind of a medical organisation, and I think the career progression was quite well defined, and you could probably progress quite quickly. It was nice having I can't lie, it was nice having a company car and a company phone and iPad and all these fancy things. That was a good part of the job. I suppose a more negative was spent a lot of time on the road. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of traveling, sort of day to day, going all around the country, and a lot of time spent in quite boring hotels in sort of business parks and on ring roads on the outskirts of big cities and things, sort of on your own. And you didn't always get the sort of best welcome as well as someone working for a medical company in business development. If you turn up at even as a booked meeting, from always get the best welcome from hospital consultants and nurses and things like that. As much as they like the products and use them, there was always I'm sure you can imagine a little bit of hostility. So that was. I suppose a bit of a challenge at times. And then I said I missed the kind of academic world, and that's why I kind of wanted to move back to publishing. And in my current job, there's not really too many negatives. I really do love it. I love the ethos of working for a not-for-profit. That sort of really suits me. And it's sort of kind of part of the reason why I sort of left business, because a lot of it is about generating profit really. And there's some fantastic products which did great things in terms of diagnosing diseases and things like that, and so you do feel like something useful and helping people, but a lot of it is about making money as well, and that's much less of a concern in sort of more of the academic kind of world, and sort of better suited, I think, to my personality. Like, money's not really necessarily a driving force for me. I want to do something a bit more value than that. Although there's nothing wrong with a job like that if you're interested in it.
Well, academic publishing seems like a fantastic fit for you. So this next question could be a little difficult, but where do you see yourself in 10 years? Are you still in that main part of that braided river? Are you doing something different? I would love to, our audience and myself, I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
This is a tricky one. I think, if you look at my career path today, I've never really thought too far ahead. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but I do sort of seize opportunities when they come to me. I think that's come across as well, and I think that's important for everyone to do in their career, and keep cast your net wide. But I think for me, in 10 years, I'm hopefully sat on a beach on holiday looking back, thinking how amazing Plants with Planet is, how it's like a fantastic journal with all these wonderful kind of offshoots coming out of it and amazing projects all around it, and just sitting back and feeling satisfied that we've really produced something incredibly amazing. I think that's probably where I see myself at this moment in time. We're still relatively new as a journal, we're still growing, and it's great to be part of that, and we've got so many things yet to deliver, and we're working on some really exciting projects, so just seeing them come to fruition over the next sort of 6 12, 18 months. That's kind of where I set my sights on at the moment.
Well, we are certainly going to stay tuned and keep an eye out for those upcoming projects as well. We have one last question for you. It is a tough one in that we're going to ask you to narrow it down, but we ask this of all of our guests. Can you tell us what your favorite plant is?
Oh, God, there's so many to choose from. There's so many amazing, parasitic plants and carnivorous plants, and weird and wonderful, beautiful horticultural plants. I think, though, I'm going to go for pumpkin, because I've got loads of fond memories of growing fruit vegetable with my dad. Although we didn't grow pumpkins, actually, so I probably should admit that. But I had an allotment when I lived in Manchester a few years back. We had that for about 6 years, and we grew lots of pumpkins and squash on there. And just to go from a tiny, a smallish seed to this humongous, monstrous plant with 20-foot tendrils with these humongous, brightly coloured fruits on in one season, from a seed to that, just fascinated me. And I think they just look like cool plants. And you can eat the pumpkins and make some nice meals out of them. Some taste better than others, and if it's not a very tasty one, then you can always just carve it up for Halloween. So there's always a use for pumpkin. I'll go for pumpkin.
Yeah, that's an excellent choice. I love how you describe that. Bennett, thank you so much for being here today. It's been fascinating to hear about how your career has progressed. I do appreciate that, not having that super long-term focus, but just making decisions as they come up on what's right for you at that point in time. And it clearly is working out for you. So thank you so much for your advice and your perspective on working in academic publishing. I think this is going to help a lot of people today.
Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. And I hope someone finds it interesting and hopefully inspires them into a career in publishing.
This episode of Planted, Finding Your Roots in STEM Careers, was made possible by the Morton Arboretum and the Multimedia Services at College of DuPage. Check out additional resources and bonus content at www.mortonarb.org/plantedpodcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and share. This is Jessica Turner-Scoff
and Megan Wiesbrook,
and we hope you'll continue to join us as we journey into STEM careers.